They called it a playroom. That was the lie. It was a sterile facility split by reinforced glass. 2 rooms, mirror images, like someone had tried to copy a childhood from memory and failed. The walls were too clean. The air smelled like disinfectant and cold metal. There were no windows, no sun. Only the steady blink of ceiling cameras that watched without blinking back. On my side, books. Not children's books, not the kind with pictures and soft corners. Advanced physics texts, language sheets, training manuals with diagrams of bones and nerves and pressure points. The sort of reading you give to a boy when you want him to stop being a boy. I sat cross-legged on the floor with a book open in my lap. But I wasn't reading. I was listening. Because on the other side of the glass, my brother was taking someone apart. Jack was 4. At least that's what the file said. But he didn't look 4. None of us did. We grew wrong. Too fast. Too sharp. Like the world couldn't decide what age we were meant to be. Jack moved like a child with an adult's impatience. A small body, violent certainty. He had the robotic nanny sprawled across his floor in pieces. White casing split open, wires exposed, sparks snapping as if the machine were still trying to pretend it was alive. Jack's hands were delicate and brutal at the same time. He didn't hesitate. He didn't apologize. He dismantled the nanny like it had offended him by existing. Then he looked up. His eyes were the first thing people noticed. Blue, too vivid, unnaturally bright, like someone had poured light into them. And when the overhead fluorescence hit just right, there were tiny golden flecks buried in the blue, as if something inside him was watching. Jack pressed both palms to the glass and grinned at me like he'd found a secret. "Johnny!" he shouted, voice muffled by the barrier. He held it up, a small circular component pulsing faintly, warm and alive in his fingers. "We can shut her down and run." I stared at the power core. My stomach tightened. Run where? To what? I glanced up toward the corner camera without meaning to. My body did it automatically, like a reflex I'd been taught before I could speak. Jack saw my eyes move, and his grin sharpened. "I don't care," he snapped, slamming the core against the glass like he could crack it with his will. "Don't you want to see what's outside?" Outside. The word felt like a myth, like a place from a story someone once told us, and then took away. I swallowed. My voice came out small. "No, we can't. He's watching." Jack leaned closer until his breath fogged the glass for a second. "I don't care," he repeated. Slower now, like he wanted the words to cut. "This is our cage." He said it like it was the simplest truth in the world. I didn't answer, because there was a part of me, quiet, buried, carefully trained, that wanted to argue. Not because Jack was wrong, because if Jack was right, then everything I'd done to survive meant nothing. On the other side of the glass, Jack hit the barrier again. "Say something," he demanded. "Say you want out!" I opened my mouth, and what came out was the lie that kept me alive. "This is our home, Jack." Jack froze. For a moment, he didn't look angry. He looked hurt, like I'd betrayed him in a way only a brother can. Then his face twisted into that bitter grin again, and he turned away, dropping back down to the robot's body with renewed fury. "Fine," he muttered. "Stay in your home." He ripped out another wire. The nanny's head rolled across the floor and stopped, face up, eyes blank. For a second, it looked like a dead woman staring at the ceiling. A spark popped. Jack laughed. And then I felt it, before I saw him. That shift in the air, that pressure, like the room itself had decided to behave. I lifted my eyes toward the observation window above our playroom, darkened glass that hid the watchers. A door somewhere unlocked with a soft electronic click. Footsteps, measured, calm, unhurried. He appeared behind the observation glass like he belonged there, the way a king belongs to a throne. Dr. Nicholson, immaculate, pale blonde hair combed neatly back, suit pressed like he'd never known sweat. A man carved into discipline. When he looked at you, it wasn't a gaze, it was an assessment. His eyes were a cold blue, different from Jack's, but close enough that I hated the similarity. Dr. Nicholson's attention rested on me first. Not on Jack. On me. I sat straighter without being told. He watched me for a long moment, then tilted his head slightly as if pleased with what he saw. Then his gaze slid across the glass to Jack. Jack, still ripping the nanny apart, didn't even look up. Dr. Nicholson's expression didn't change, but something subtle tightened at the corner of his mouth, as if disappointment was an old habit he'd learned to wear politely. He lifted a small recorder near his lips. His voice came through the intercom smooth as a scalpel.
Subject Alpha remains compliant.
A pause, and then, like an afterthought,
Subject Beta exhibits independence.
another pause, colder.
Problematic.
Jack finally looked up at the sound of Dr. Nicholson's voice. He rose slowly, like a wild animal deciding whether to attack. His hands were smeared with grease and metal dust. A thin line of blood ran down one finger, where the wire had snapped back and cut him. Jack didn't care. He stared up at Dr. Nicholson with open defiance. Dr. Nicholson stared back with calm authority. Like defiance wasn't new, only inconvenient. Jack pressed his palm to the glass again. "You can't keep us here forever," he said, voice low, steady, dangerous. Dr. Nicholson didn't flinch. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten. He only watched Jack as if Jack were a question he intended to answer later. And then, because he knew exactly where to cut, Dr. Nicholson shifted his gaze back to me, not Jack. "Me,
John,"
he said, using my name like it was a command. I felt Jack's eyes burn into the side of my face. Dr. Nicholson's voice softened by a fraction. Not kindness, control.
"Do you understand why you're here?"
My throat tightened. I glanced at Jack, at the dismantled nanny, at the sparks dying on the floor. Then I faced forward again, staring at the observation glass like it was a god. "Yes, sir," I said. "To learn." Dr. Nicholson's lips curved, almost a smile. "Good." Jack's laugh came out sharp and bitter. "That's what you want to be?" He spat. "His pet?" I flinched. Dr. Nicholson's tone didn't change. "Subject Beta," he said, as if Jack were still just an entry on a page.
"Step away from the glass."
Jack didn't move. Dr. Nicholson waited, perfectly patient. The silence stretched. In it, I heard the truth. Dr. Nicholson could stand there all day. Jack would get tired first. That was the difference between them. Jack's anger was fire. Dr. Nicholson's was ice. Finally, Jack stepped back, slowly, still staring up at him. Dr. Nicholson lifted the recorder again, speaking as if he were documenting weather.
"Containment protocols remain necessary."
Then quieter, almost to himself.
"Early signs confirmed."
I didn't know what that meant. Not yet. But I felt the weight of it settle in my bones anyway. Dr. Nicholson's gaze lingered on Jack one last time. Clinical, calculating. Then he looked at me again. And in that moment, I understood something I couldn't have put into words back then. He didn't love us. He didn't hate us. He didn't see two boys. He saw outcomes. He saw one of us as a success, and the other as a problem that would need to be solved. Dr. Nicholson turned and walked away, footsteps fading into the facility. The intercom clicked off. The cameras kept blinking. Jack stared after him, trembling with rage. Then he turned to the broken nanny on the floor and kicked it hard enough that its torso slid across the room. He looked at me through the glass. His eyes were bright, wet with something he wouldn't name. "This isn't over," he mouthed. And I believed him. Because Jack wasn't built to survive cages. He was built to break them. And if he couldn't break the glass, he would break whatever was inside him first.